Welcome back everybody, my name's Nick930, and today we're going to look at the new Monster Hunter World, available now for PS4 and Xbox One. Monster Hunter World is an open-world action RPG in the same vein as games like Zelda Breath of the Wild, The Witcher 3, and Assassin's Creed Origins. In Monster Hunter World, you play as a hunter and are challenged with hunting large, fictional creatures not too dissimilar from dinosaurs. The game's core gameplay revolves around hunting monsters, crafting more powerful gear, and then hunting even more powerful monsters. This game is actually one of the first in the long-running handheld series to be featured specifically for the main consoles, and along with that, is also more accessible to the Western market, something the series has struggled with since its inception. Alright, so let's begin this review by looking at the game's story. It's important to know right off the bat that this is a very typical Capcom-developed game. It's got all the weird Eastern quirks you'd come to expect from Japanese video games, like bad lip sync, awkward dialogue, cheesy character designs, unnecessary adorable animal sidekicks, and a female sidekick that is likely under 18. If you're a veteran Monster Hunter player, then this is all stuff you probably already know, but if you're new to the series like I am, then it can seem pretty jarring at first when compared to typical Western culture and media. The story features a nameless protagonist that has no dialogue aside from a few grunts and yells during action scenes. Now, I'm sure Capcom would tell you that this is so you can put yourself into their world, but whenever I see a developer do this, it's pretty obvious they just wanted to manage their budget, and avoid spending a ton of money on a primary voice actor for the protagonist, along with the writing and motion capture that goes along with that. The story seems pretty straightforward. You, along with a bunch of young hunters, are traveling to the New World in an effort to track an ancient dragon and study its behavior on the island. Shortly after arriving, this massive giant monster wrecks your boat, and you're stuck on Tutorial Beach for the first hour or so, learning how the game works. Once you get past the miles of tutorials explaining simple things like inventory, shopkeepers, and combat, you eventually are let loose to accept various quests at a job board and hunt down various unique monsters on a seemingly large play area. The map itself is actually pretty restricting, despite looking rather open at first. There's very large open spaces connected through various jungle hallways, and progressing further through the game gives you access to newer, larger areas. But for the purpose of the game, it works really well, putting more of the focus on the actual hunt rather than on needlessly large and empty open worlds like other video games. The actual hunts feel a lot like The Witcher 3. You see a job posting on a board, you do some research and prepare your gear for the hunt, go out into the world investigating various clues like large footprints, and then you engage in a lengthy and generally difficult fight. I like how the fights in Monster Hunter actually escalate in difficulty, with various new attacks and arenas to fight in. The first major monster I hunted down would take a ton of damage and then flee, requiring me to track his footsteps again, and when I met up with him, he'd unleash new attacks on me or even call in a swarm of smaller enemies to slow me down. The controls aren't immediately apparent at first, and there's definitely a bit of a learning curve, but once you get used to it, the combat handles fairly well, and it does feel comparable to something like The Witcher. There's a ton of different weapons in the game that all handle differently, so it's really up to you and your style of play. There's also a lot of cool moves like the ability to hide in shrubs, jump on the back of monsters and stab them repeatedly, and even use a whetstone to sharpen your blade. After killing or trapping your quarry, you gather unique equipment from these beasts that can be used to craft new armor and weapons, which is the essence of this game in its entirety. Hunt a monster, harvest their resources, craft better weapons, and then hunt bigger monsters. It's an addicting formula, and the unique creature designs and variety in combat scenarios makes for a fun and lengthy experience. Thanks to a more connected platform, Monster Hunter World also allows you to play online with your friends. You can party up with a group of 4 and take on quests together, making Monster Hunter a great new co-op experience, something that is always a welcome change of pace from the consistent competitive video games. I haven't tested this feature myself because for whatever reason the entire PlayStation Network was down during my time with the game, but if you're looking for a larger and healthy online community, I highly recommend picking this up on the PlayStation platform. The Japanese community for this game series is already gigantic, and Capcom has confirmed that the network communities will be able to play together on the PlayStation, meaning you'll never run out of players to play with online, assuming you want to play with random players, that is. Now let's talk about the graphics. Here's where we start to see some major issues with Monster Hunter. It's not necessarily the best looking game on the platform, and even on the significantly more powerful Xbox One X, there's still some really poor visual design. There seems to be a significant lack of contrast in the color design, making everything look like an Unreal 3 game. And it's a real shame considering the support for HDR and the potentially colorful setting of the game. Textures appear flat even when the settings are set to the high resolution or increased graphics modes, and anti-aliasing at distances seems subpar. But it's not all bad. The actual creature designs are excellent, and the overall complexity of every scene is pretty remarkable as there's a lot going on at all times. And for the most part, the PS4 Pro seems to handle the game at a plenty playable frame rate. But I did find some inconsistencies in performance, even when running on the preferred frame rate mode, and it'll be interesting to see how this game ends up performing on the PC later this year. Overall, Monster Hunter World is a fantastic introduction to a beloved franchise that has since been exclusive to handheld platforms. The game is a lot of fun and a welcome change of pace from your typical AAA game. If you're a fan of RPG games, or more specifically JRPG, I highly recommend picking this one up, as it does feel a lot like those classic RPG games from the original PlayStation era, with addicting gameplay, a unique and interesting world, and also the opportunity to fight a freaking T-Rex. I hope this review was helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them below. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more content posted every week.